The word nuclear carries a weight unlike any other. In today's world of rising tensions and heated conflicts, the shadow of World War III has begun to loom over conversations once again. But if nuclear weapons were actually used, what would the consequences look like? This isn't just speculation, it's science, it's history, and it's a potential future we all need to understand. In this video, we'll explore the origins of nuclear weapons, the devastating effects they can have on people and the planet, and ultimately, why the existence of these weapons demands more global responsibility than ever before. The dawn of the nuclear age began during World War II, with the Manhattan Project. In 1945, the United States detonated the first atomic bomb in New Mexico. Shortly after, 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing over 200,000 people, mostly civilians, either instantly or in the months that followed from radiation sickness. These were bombs with a yield of around 15 kilotons each. That's 15,000 tons of TNT. Today's nuclear warheads can be more than 100 times more powerful. In the Cold War era, the US and the Soviet Union entered an arms race that led to the doctrine of mutual assured destruction. The logic, if both sides could wipe each other out, neither would dare start a war. But the sheer number of warheads, peaking at over 60,000 globally, created a dangerously unstable balance. Since then, efforts like the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty have aimed to limit the spread of nuclear weapons. Still, as of now, 9 countries possess them: the US, Russia, China, the UK, France, India, Pakistan, North Korea, and Israel, though Israel has never officially confirmed it. Let's talk about what happens when a nuclear bomb is detonated today. The explosion produces several immediate and long-term effects, each of them terrifying in scale and scope. First, the blast. A modern strategic nuclear warhead can release energy equivalent to 100 kilotons or more, meaning a fireball over a mile wide, vaporizing everything at the center. Winds exceeding 500 miles per hour can level buildings and infrastructure within a several-mile radius. Tactical nuclear weapons, which are smaller, may range from 1 to 20 kilotons, but are still devastating, enough to decimate an entire urban district. Then comes thermal radiation, an intense burst of heat and light that can cause third-degree burns to people within a 5-mile radius. Clothing and skin may ignite, and the initial flash can cause temporary or permanent blindness for those looking toward the blast. Next is ionizing radiation, a deadly pulse of gamma rays and neutrons capable of mutating or killing cells. Even those who survive the initial explosion are at risk of acute radiation syndrome, which can cause vomiting, internal bleeding, and death within days. Long-term effects include increased risks of cancer, infertility, and genetic mutations passed on to future generations. The electromagnetic pulse is another silent destroyer. A single high-altitude nuclear detonation can knock out electrical systems over hundreds of miles, plunging entire cities or even regions into darkness. No internet, no communications, no functioning hospitals. And then fallout, radioactive particles launched into the upper atmosphere that drift with wind patterns. These particles can settle on faraway land and water, contaminating crops, livestock, drinking water, and air. Fallout can render entire regions uninhabitable for years. Case studies have modeled what would happen if a 300-kiloton bomb detonated over New York City. The blast radius would instantly kill more than 1 million people, with another 2 million exposed to lethal levels of radiation or trapped under collapsed structures. Emergency services would be crippled, and the economic impact would ripple across the globe. Another simulation focused on a mid-sized European city, such as Frankfurt or Warsaw, estimates over 800,000 deaths and complete destruction of core infrastructure. Even a smaller 15-kiloton device, detonated in a dense metropolitan area, could match or exceed the devastation of Hiroshima. Whether large or small, tactical or strategic, any use of nuclear weapons today would mark an irreversible turning point in human history, and it would begin a chain reaction of consequences that science has already warned us about. The environmental effects of nuclear warfare could be catastrophic. even if only a small percentage of the world's nuclear arsenal is used. In a phenomenon known as nuclear winter, massive firestorms generated by burning cities would inject soot and smoke into the upper atmosphere. These aerosols would remain in the stratosphere for months or even years, blocking sunlight and lowering global temperatures by several degrees Celsius. According to a 2007 study published in the journal Atmospheric Chemistry and Physics, even a regional nuclear war could reduce global precipitation by up to 10%, severely affecting agriculture. NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies and scientists from Rutgers University have run models simulating a limited exchange of 100 Hiroshima-sized weapons. Their findings? A decade-long drop in surface temperatures, widespread drought, and shortened growing seasons across continents. As Professor Alan Robach, one of the lead authors, states, nuclear war would be a climate disaster beyond imagination. The oceans wouldn't be spared either. Increased atmospheric particulates would affect marine photosynthesis, reducing oxygen levels and disrupting food chains. Fallout could contaminate fish stocks, many of which form the primary protein source for billions of people. Beyond nuclear winter, radioactive contamination from fallout zones could devastate biodiversity hotspots, potentially causing extinctions. The International Union for Conservation of Nature warns that prolonged exposure to radiation could render some ecosystems sterile for generations. The global interconnectedness of food and trade means no region would remain unaffected. Famine, ecosystem collapse, and mass extinction are no longer theoretical. They are scientifically projected outcomes of even a so-called limited nuclear conflict. Simply put, the environment would not recognize national borders in the wake of a nuclear war. The damage would be planetary, persistent, and nearly impossible to reverse in our lifetimes. The aftermath of a nuclear war wouldn't just be environmental. It would be social, medical, and psychological. Most healthcare systems are not equipped to handle mass casualties from radiation, burns, or trauma on such a scale. Hospitals would be overwhelmed or destroyed. With power and communication lines down from EMPs, coordination of aid becomes nearly impossible. Panic, looting, and civil unrest would follow. With food and water contaminated or scarce, mass migration and refugee crises would escalate. Borders would collapse, and many governments might fail entirely. In places where public trust was already fragile, societal collapse could happen within days. Survivor stories from Hiroshima and Nagasaki give us grim glimpses into this reality. Many hibakusha, those who lived through the atomic bombings, have spoken of charred bodies, endless lines of people with burned skin hanging from their limbs, and the eerie silence that followed the blasts. Some were children at the time and described how schools disappeared in seconds, and friends were vaporized before their eyes. Decades later, many of these survivors still endure leukemia, cataracts, and thyroid issues caused by radiation exposure. Social stigma added a psychological layer of suffering. In post-war Japan, many hibakusha were discriminated against in jobs and marriage because of misunderstandings about radiation exposure. The trauma didn't end with survival. It lingered for generations. Children born after the bombings were not immune. Studies conducted by the Radiation Effects Research Foundation in Japan showed increased rates of microcephaly and other congenital disabilities. These findings suggest that the genetic damage from radiation is not a short-term concern. It can ripple through family lines for decades. And then there's the mental toll. Survivors may suffer lifelong trauma, PTSD, and depression. In modern contexts, a nuclear attack could also destroy digital archives, social infrastructure, and cultural heritage, affecting not just how we live, but how we remember who we are. The human cost of nuclear war is not just measured in casualties, but in scars, visible and invisible, that last for generations. Today, there are over 12,000 nuclear warheads in existence. While that number has decreased since the Cold War, the destructive capability has increased. Proponents of nuclear deterrence argue that the weapons prevent large-scale wars. But critics say the risks of miscalculation, accidents, or rogue actors make their continued existence unacceptable. Recent reports by the Bulletin of the atomic scientists have moved the doomsday clock closer to midnight than ever before, citing both nuclear risks and climate change. So where do we go from here? Diplomacy, education, and public pressure are critical. Treaties like New START must be upheld and expanded. New technologies like AI and cyber warfare could also be included in modern disarmament talks. But perhaps most importantly, the public must stay informed. If you're watching this, you're part of the solution. Share this video, raise awareness, call for accountability from your leaders. Nuclear war is preventable, but only if we choose it. Thank you for watching. If you found this video valuable, please subscribe to Tadpod and share it with others. We cover science, history, and the big questions shaping our future. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay hopeful.